You actually don't need a jacket now in Delhi in early Feb. Crisis, whether it's geopolitical, socioeconomic, or humanitarian. And then code, obviously AI. You know, there's a mentor in this room, Meenakshi ma'am, who said this morning, she was telling me that, you know, technology is no more the ketchup that you get to enjoy with your bhajia, but it's actually become the very oil without which bhajia is not even possible. So, you know, code is increasingly shaping how we learn, how we live, and how we work. And with that, you know, there's so much to figure out. And if we can't do it together, then definitely we won't succeed. So what we are going to discuss today is, this conversation when we were designing, Aditya, my co-host is here. When we were designing, we said it has to sit at the intersection of education, technology, and justice. And in that context, I want to highlight few things. And we said, can we really reimagine the power of AI so that it's seen beyond just innovation? It's actually seen as something that can be the force for education equity, that it can really nurture these 1 billion futures and not just create better opportunities for a privileged few. And in that context, I want to share few figures with you. 4 in every 5 people that is living on this planet is actually today in the global south. While Europe and the global north is aging, more than 90% of the young people are actually sitting in the global south, right? Then if I move forward, you know, in India, especially when I was in school, my whole generation grew up with this word that D stands for demographic dividend. But that demographic dividend stands at risk because education equity per se is at risk. I'm sure most of you sitting in here, I see Indian faces. You are familiar with the Indian statistics. But even in the global south context, there are over 270 million children who are today out of school, where access itself is a question mark. We have over 70% kids under age 10 who cannot read grade appropriate text. We have 1 in every 5 young people in the global south is actually out of education, employment, or meaningful training. And most of them are more likely to be girls. So many of us who are actually the gender advocates, this is a worrisome figure. Now if I take you further, you know why this conversation for global south is important? Because we are not just different countries on different continents. We actually have a shared legacy. Our education system has been shaped by our colonial history. There's a friend of ours who you will meet in the second half of this conversation who will talk about identities and language. Many of us do not grow up or do not have the medium of instruction that is familiar to us. Education system has constantly, systemically seen underinvestment. You know what's the average per child expenditure in global south? It's less than $55, 5,500 Indian rupees. Obviously, external support in education more and more is decreasing. We are hearing, and rightfully so, people are talking about climate, people are talking about crisis, but education is something that is going down on the radar. Digital adoption. Technology in the last 2 decades, all of us would agree that has created more, has really widened that gap than bringing people together. So the opportunity in front of us today as we sit in this AI Impact Summit is that how do we design consciously, intentionally, so that AI can become a force of equalizer and not really widen that divide. I'm Khushbu Awasthi, my organization is Shiksha Lokam, and in Shiksha Lokam, we have started these early prototypes using AI, where we have really seen that when designed right, people are able to share their voices. We are able to hear and listen to the voices that were previously not possible. There are women in the most remotest part of the country who are saying that they really found it empowering when we provided them with an AI-based companion. So how do we design AI solutions so that it restores agency? It really brings up dignity rather than further cutting down on it. And that's the discussion that we wanted to have today in this room. saying AI really matters, but only when it is designed thoughtfully, when solutions will be done considering the use cases that all of us will bring to the fore, and tech and impact sector will not work in two silos, but will work together as one unified force. So I'm very, very happy that this conversation, we are able to host it in this very, very powerful space. And to begin the conversation, we have two very committed, wonderful, thoughtful women leaders who have been working at the intersection of education and technology, and specifically AI, who will be introduced to you by my friend Aditya. If you could just stand up for a while. A wonderful social entrepreneur, founder of MakerGhart, but also an AI scientist himself, and he has been experimenting, working with how AI can really become this force for social good. So Aditya, I would let you introduce the wonderful speakers here, and then please have the conversation.
Thank you so much, Khushbu, and thank you everyone for being a part of this session today. I really appreciate the time you've taken out to join this of the 600 odd events happening at this very moment in this entire venue. So really means a lot that you showed up, and your presence itself is something that we are very grateful for. You will have to excuse me because I conveniently picked up a cough the morning of the day when I have to moderate a session, so I hopefully will not have that interrupt me too often. Between the two people that are sitting with me over here, their work has touched over 100 million learners around the globe through free textbooks, open courseware, coding curriculums, community-driven education programs, and much, much more. Neeru Khosla, on my far right, is the co-founder and executive director of CK12. This was an organization launched back in 2006. They built courseware and now also AI solutions for hundreds of millions of learners around the globe. She's also on the board of the Nueva School in the Bay Area, the American Indian Foundation, Donors Choose, among many others. Neeru and I actually met through mutual advisors at Stanford's Graduate School of Education, where we both had degrees that we did, but at least a couple of decades apart. So thank you for being with us today. Vandana Sikka serves on the board of directors of Code.org, Pratham, and Women in Data Science. She previously also launched Infosys Foundation USA in 2014. But most recently is the founder of Learny, which has built an app called Vasi. This is a freely available app on app stores, built with a simple belief that everyone is great at something. And this platform is one way for anyone to create great nuggets of wisdom using AI that they can then share with the world on this platform. So here's what makes this conversation really urgent. We're at this moment where AI, as Khushbu was describing, can be this incredible equalizer, or it can perpetuate and widen all the divides that we have been trying to close for the last few decades in education. I think the questions that I want to ask this group here, and I want us to all then do in our discussions later on, are not about if we what AI could do for education. I think what we're trying to get to is what it should do for the classroom, and what it must stand to serve in terms of our objectives for learning. And so I'd love to start with you, Neeru, with my first question. CK12 has been offering free educational courseware, curriculum, resources for 2 decades now. And this, of course, was long before the current AI wave and even previous AI waves that we have had in the last 20 years. I'm curious to know, now that we have this state-of-the-art with generative AI today, what has actually changed in what you can do for a student in, say, rural Tamil Nadu, for example, versus maybe what was possible 3 years ago?
I should hold this so people can hear me. Thank you for that. 20 years ago when I started, it was textbook in the classroom. It still is, don't get me wrong, but when I started, it was a textbook in the classroom, and online was just coming on. The thing that we knew that could happen is that we could offer lot more than just one modality. That itself was such a big issue. You could take multimodality, but the problem was we are focused on foundational learning, which is K through 12, math and science. That's where we started. And so we knew that to make everything available, we would need devices. But I think long term. I just don't do a quick hack. I want to make sure when we're dealing with kids, we've got to keep in mind that it's about learning. It's not about anything else. So when we think about learning, what is it that they really need? Access, equity. Oh, those are all things that, are everyone's trying to do. But it costs a lot. You have to, when you think about teaching and learning, you have to be systematic about it. You just cannot say, I'm going to teach you, you're going to learn. It never happens. So we started talking about putting content that was at level. And remember, 20 years ago, it was the content that was actually coming out of Wikipedia kind of text context. But today, what we can do is multimodality. We started building the heart of the system, which was the practice system, because we could do this now. We started simulations. We started all kind of things so we could put them in a package. So it's a vertical that needs to be its own vertical, like medicine is its vertical, education needs to be its vertical, and we need to make sure every sciences, learning sciences, development sciences, all those are part of the game. Teachers teaching. So that's what now we could do with all that. When we built that into one flywheel, we could then take all this and create knowledge for the teacher with deep knowledge tracing through and conversation. We could put all that together and then get real in the moment knowledge about the student's knowledge state. That's changed. Before it was, did they get the right answer or not? Right? Did they learn by standards, even though the standards don't mean much? That was just a political and a required thing so that you could say, oh, the teacher was doing their job. But it didn't help the student. We are in a place, and I'm so thrilled for AI. I know we've got lots of issues, but every technology is iterative. So if you think about every technology and you keep making it better, 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 sometimes you takes time, sometimes you leapfrog, right? So, those are the things that we can do that are absolutely necessary for the students to learn. Not that I got the answer right. Too long.
No, I love that. Thank you. And I love the context you gave of us needing to, we finally are at a moment in time where we can meet the learner. We can meet the learner where they're at in terms of the context, in terms of their learning journey, their understanding journey, and the same is also true for the instructor. Vandana, I'd love to ask you, as we bring these tools and these technologies, as students all over the world start to engage with AI systems in and outside the classroom, there's also this idea of AI literacy becoming extremely important. And we haven't really settled on an answer for what AI literacy looks like for a 14-year-old in Chhattisgarh versus a 14-year-old in Palo Alto. And as someone that has been deeply involved in shaping AI literacy curriculums, and before that, foundational literacy and numeracy curriculums and programs around the world, how would you kind of answer or approach this interesting opportunity we have now of building literacy for this new medium, for this new technology?
Yeah, I think we are living in very, very amazing and interesting times. And as Neeru said, very excited about the potential of AI here. Aditya, out of 8 billion people on this planet, I'm going to throw some stats here as Khushbu did earlier. Out of 8 billion people on the planet, I think there are only about a few thousand people who can actually make a large language model. And the number of those working in frontier labs is even smaller. AI engineers are probably in a few 100,000, and AI application builders are probably less than 2 million or so. So as you can see, we have a massive asymmetry in the creators and consumers of technology here. Now, to address your question, Aditya, here's the thing about AI literacy. Um, I don't think of AI literacy in terms of a curriculum. I think it's a ladder. And where a child stands on that ladder depends entirely on what access they have already. So for a 14-year-old from Chhattisgarh, for example, it could be about, the starting point could be about recognizing misinformation, um, learning to safely ask questions from these large language models, using perhaps a voice tutor or a WhatsApp chatbot that works very well for learning in low connectivity areas. At the same time, for a 14-year-old in California, yes, there is disparity, but a 14-year-old in California would be perhaps digging deeper into how LLMs work, understanding bias in data sets, perhaps even making some small applications using machine learning, and even exploring careers in AI. But here's what I have learned from my experience, from my decade experience at code.org, which has been teaching computer science and AI literacy for a while now. You cannot leapfrog foundational literacy. Whether you are looking at reading fluency or building AI literacy, I think you just cannot leapfrog the fundamentals. And both, as Neeru said earlier, have to be taught at the right level. And I think that's an opportunity that AI has brought to us. It is very, very exciting. We now have lots of tools that are championing this through AI tutors and personalized learning. Code is doing that, CK12 is doing that, Khan Academy has been doing that for a while, and Pratham has been teaching at the right level as well. So there's plenty of these examples of success stories here. So now, who gets to define the AI literacy?
Well, actually, it's not just AI literacy. It's, foundational.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any kind of foundational math, science, literacy, right?
Yes.
That's
yes.
the question.
That's a good question.
Right.
And I think we have to work on AI literacy just as we have worked with math and STEM and other sciences. We have to bring in all stakeholders, work together in partnership. The local communities have to define the objectives using their local context. Government has to probably provide for the infrastructure and set the guardrails. Educators have to define the pedagogy and the how. And of course, companies can provide tools and transparency, we hope. So there's definitely, it has to be a foundational, it has to be a partnership between stakeholders to get to this wonderful dream of universal foundational literacy. And I think our goal has to be, we don't just want consumers of AI, of technology, we want to make it so we have more AI shapers, AI creators.
Absolutely. I really love that point that you bring up. It so happens, though, that so much of the large language models that we use, that I use, that our children in the global south will use have largely been trained on Western data sets, on Western pedagogical frameworks as well. And so when it comes to this question of context, and context beyond just language, yes, in India alone, we have 22 languages that are spoken by at least 100 million odd people. And in that world, I'm just curious to know, as maybe Neeru, this one is for you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts here. How do we build AI tools? How does CK12 build AI tools that addresses the context question or opportunity beyond language?
Actually, CK12 always had this in our mind, that our mission was about learning and teaching. It wasn't about, did they get the answers right, which I've said before, but really this is what we've been working towards. So for us, it's been making sure that we take everything that we know about learning and putting that into the system, in the platform we will build. I mean, if you think about every educational company or company or online AI thing that people are doing is based on one thing. It's going to be a tutor, it's going to be lesson plans, it's going to be whatever. And I never believed in that, because that's very fractionating, right? It fractionates the work. So I said the platform had to come together where all the three things the teacher, the curriculum, and the curriculum is just a package, right? And the student tutor have to come together so that they know exactly what's happening at every moment, and we can tell, hey, teacher, this is what's happening with this student. Don't ask this question because 3/4 of your classroom students cannot answer this question. Cover something else. This particular child has gone all the way and kind of, just has kind of, didn't understand, they don't understand carrying the fractions over, right? Not fraction, what do you call those? Operations, thank you, right? Sorry, I'm getting old. But, so, it's an iterative process. We very carefully started building online content, which was made into flex books. Flex books were nothing but flexible textbooks. So we were doing personalization 20 years ago. We built the content so we could give it away for free. So everything we do is offered for free for every child and teacher, etc. But the whole thing is really knowing teaching can only happen, or learning can only happen if the teacher can help you, whether it's a tutor, whether it's an AI tutor, because the AI tutor will go very deep and pull out where exactly you misunderstood. And I have to say that we didn't do any PR, didn't do any advertising, nothing. We just very seriously kept building this platform so it would be long-term thinking and it would be useful for learning. And it can now, within 2 to 4 questions, we know where exactly the student's making a mistake. Well, Flexi, can you help me understand why does the sun burn when there's no oxygen up there? Imagine a young kid, middle school kid, asking that question. We at once know that this kid doesn't understand the difference between chemical combustion and nuclear fission. So, this audience really great.
Really amazing.
So we can help that child. We can say, well, think about it. There's no oxygen. And then we know that this child hasn't been exposed to nuclear fusion. So that's how the system works. This is a small example, but these are really true questions. You should see the questions students ask. Phenomenal. To the point of, and I'm sorry, this is very important. Students in the US or in the West, students in here are at the same thing. Some students are very capable, right? We are wrong if we are assuming that the students in the West are better. They are not. They are not. Most of them are not connected. So we have to be careful when we say that here the students are not up to par. It's the same thing there. Yes, there are students who don't have opportunities that we want to make available. So I just want to make sure that, I'm sorry, I wanted to say that because I don't want to leave this point in the middle and not let people understand it is not about children here not being smarter than the children in Palo Alto. That's not the case.
It's just about access. Yeah. It just comes down to
and
access.
equity at the right level.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been really focused on. AI helps us a lot.
And I really appreciate you bringing up the point and using the words access and equity as well. And I'd like to add another dimension of that. I'm also cognizant that we are reaching the end of our time here, so I want to probably ask just a couple more questions and then open up to part 2 of our session, which involves everyone in the audience here. Speaking about access, many people in the audience here are social entrepreneurs. They are builders of these technologies. They are builders of education programs in classrooms. building AI tools is expensive. It costs money to run and have foundational models that can be trained on relevant data. Consuming AI generated experiences is expensive. Access to computers is not at an all-time high in schools across the global south. Infrastructure, connectivity, literacy, training, knowing how to, the know-how of working and building with these tools is very fragmented. And so I'm curious to hear both your perspectives on how do we kind of either leapfrog or think about or deal with some of these realities around both sides, creating with AI and also kind of in the classroom context, engaging with AI experiences, AI literacy curriculums in the absence of ubiquitous infrastructure.
I think it. Oh, may I go first? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it comes down to infrastructure and understanding the infrastructure needs. I think that would be a good starting point. When we talk about infrastructure, I think there's two kinds. The first one would be the one that students and educators need to have access to these tools, like broadband, electricity, compute, devices. The second is the infrastructure that these large language models and the tools themselves need to run on. And I think for the former, a good approach, as Khushbu mentioned earlier, is that we should consider intentionally designing systems that work well. For example, offline first, thinking about WhatsApp chatbots, voice-enabled AI tools. All of these will work well in where there's low connectivity or spotty electricity. And then there's organizations that have already done a lot of work, like Pratham, for example. They have built, I think it's called Padhai and Bal Siksha. These are both offline tools and WhatsApp chatbots that work very well in low connectivity. And I think Khan Academy has also had such tools. So there's a lot of success stories around that, and we have to build for those intentionally. But on the second point about large language models, I want to throw in a little bit of a reality check there about what those costs are. I know we have a lot of dependence on out-of-country organizations right now, and the hope is to build our own large language models, and I think we have built one here already. But to run these large language models, these frontier models, we actually need massive amounts of GPUs, primarily from NVIDIA, at this point at least. Now, to my knowledge, India AI got access to about 50,000 of these NVIDIA GPUs already, and the goal is to get about 200,000 more before the end of the year, which is all awesome and we need it. But for perspective, by comparison, OpenAI had access to over 1 million of these last year. And Africa alone has access to less than 10,000 of these. So as you can see, there are huge gaps in access to infrastructure here. And that is something we have to consider when we build these systems. And then there is the energy cost. These AI clusters are actually insanely hungry. And here in India, I think we are building a 3 gigawatt data center. I'm not an expert on energy, but my sense is that that is a massive amount of energy resource that we need, and we need it, and we need to go ahead and build it. But I think there is a lot of inequity in these infrastructure resources. However, I also think that that creates an opportunity for all of us. For example, we need more local talent. To deal with this energy needs, I think we need more local talent in nuclear power, not to digress from it. Actually, talking of nuclear power, do we know anyone here who has the ability to teach students how to make things? Yep. We're talking about Maker Ghat. Hey,
Yeah.
Aditya, do you mind teaching kids how to make like fusion reactors and SMRs and things like that?
That would be the dream. That
Yep.
would be the aspiration.
Over to you.
No, thank you. Absolutely. I before you go, Neeru, I did want to kind of react to that very quickly. When we talk about AI in education, I think it's so important to look at the entire stack of what it takes to deliver an AI intervention to the classroom. It's the energy dependence, as you very rightly described. It's the data sets. It's the training. A lot of this stuff isn't visible as a consumer app, but is so vital and critical to be able to build and sustain these experiences. And so I really appreciate you for calling that out as infrastructural requirements and opportunities for entrepreneurial thinking as well, which I know a lot of people here are deeply engaged in. Yes.
You know, this kind of bothers me, right? There are various levels of requirements. We didn't stop teaching kids because, you know, we didn't have textbooks. We didn't stop teaching kids because they didn't have pen or paper. Then online came along. We went along, we kind of got ready for that. So when we did CK12 20 years ago, we kept building whatever technology was available. So it made what the teaching learning was in the classroom, took it to the next step, took it to the next step, took it to the next step. And you know, I'm not a chip builder. I'm not gonna do Jensen's work for him, you know, but we ourselves, one of our mission criteria was that we were not going to make education more expensive, right? We were going to make it so it's accessible, it's equity, it's, you know, to the point for all the students. Now, I'm not saying that we can do everything that's being done for the consumer for education. We have to be a little bit careful about the noise about consumer AI versus educational AI. And so when we did that, and my co-founder, Miral Shah, is in the room, you know, he says, what should we do? 12 years ago, he joined 13 years ago. And I said, let's build technologies that are good for human beings. One of the things we did, we started using, we didn't have access to OpenAI or any of the LLMs. We started hacking those and saying, how can we use these without making it costly for ourselves? We had experts who came in and who did the whole process, and they're still working with that. We have a human in the middle. So that human made sure there was no hallucination. We made our own content so that we could control the quality of the content and offered it for free for everyone. You could flex it. Right now, what we are offering, you can bring any curriculum into our system, and we put intelligence into that, which means, right, which means not just learning, did you get the right answer, go do the homework, etc., but it's step-by-step solutions. It's giving them hints. It's making them think. If you're a student who doesn't have help, parents can't help, you come to CK12 24/7. Flexi is available for you. You can, you know, get your parents' you know, phone, and you can use it then. Now, I agree it's not the optimally you know, fair situation, but we cannot stop because we don't have the capacity, like I said before. I feel very strongly about that. Let's continue so we can help everyone as much as we can. We are already built for helping students who are behind. We encourage them. They don't even realize, oh my God, that's why I didn't get the answer wrong? I mean, right? So those are the kinds of things we've really very carefully built into the system. And we're a nonprofit. We don't sell data. We don't share data. But we help you. So bring all your students into the system. Come talk to us if you want to adopt it. We will use your curriculum anywhere to help you.
And Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I want to kind of call out the note of optimism there about, yes, there will always be constraints. There will always be technological, infrastructural constraints, but that is by no means a reason to stop or to take a step back. It is to continue to remain ambitious in our efforts to build and design and take these forward. One thing that all of us had committed to doing here was, there are some really amazing people in the audience here. We're all going to a number of sessions. We're hearing a lot of panels. We wanted to create a little bit of space where there isn't as much talking happening and a little more engagement happening with this group. So in the spirit of making, in the spirit of design, I will pass it back to Khushbu to walk us through a very short 10 or 15-minute opportunity for us to get to know who's here in the room and for us to maybe share and make some meaning together. A lot of the orgs that were mentioned here have their leadership sitting in the audience over here, and we would like to use this space to create a small discourse with all of you. But before we do that, I would encourage everyone to join me in thanking our incredible...
Absolutely. A big round of applause for both our wonderful speakers. Thank you, Neeru ma'am and Vandana for joining us. So like Aditya said, and as I always say, in education, there's never a one-way street. It's always a two-way. We really want to dip into your experiences, your use cases, your insights that you have brought into this room. So we have already heard, Neeru ma'am and Vandana already talked about the tensions, the cost, the energy needs, but then she also said that, hey, we shouldn't be limited by our current resources. We have to think about the opportunity that AI really is offering us to leapfrog, right? So that's where we want to dip into this super short collaborative sprint. Because of the way the room is organized, we are also being jugadu, okay? So what we are going to do is, people, if you can please hold the placards. We have 4 personas that we really want to dive into, which are the parents and communities, policymakers and administrators, teachers and educators, and youth and children. So if you feel there's a particular persona that speaks to you, please find that corner and just circle around. Too much of sitting is injurious to health, so we need to stand up. There's Ruchi here. Ruchi, if you can wave your hand. She's the CEO of Atma Shakti Trust, and she has huge experience of working with parents and communities in the tribal districts of India. So she's going to be the track lead for parents and communities. People, please start getting up and start moving to your track leads. This is mandatory. It's not optional. Second, we have Neeraj. Neeraj, on my left, your right-hand side, he's dealing with the teachers and educators personas. There's Shubhranshu at the back. Dr. Shitanshu Mishra is the Chief of Digital Learning and working with UNESCO. He's at the back. And there's Neeru, who is the CEO of Pravah for the young people and learner in the center of the room. Parents and communities on my left-hand side here.